good morning to everybody. I'd like to welcome everybody to this meeting today. We thank you for joining us, and I'm excited to be able to share with you a leadership development plan that together as a group of leaders put together to be able to have a successful ministry and Grace to You 2 Baptist Church. So I'm going to walk you through a ministry context history. We're going to talk a little bit about the history of Grace to You 2 Baptist Church, the current leadership context that we actually function under today, some leadership development needs that we have looked at, and an introduction to a 5-year leadership development plan. We'll talk a little bit about a ministry systems and structures that we need to have in place for this plan, a tool to be able to evaluate and provide feedback on how the plan is actually going and how we are functioning as a ministry, and then a final conclusion on Grace to You 2 leadership development plan. So I'm going to start with the ministry context history. So Grace to You 2 Baptist Church is a predominantly Hispanic church. It was built in 1950, almost 70 years ago, and it started out as an Anglo-speaking church, and over time it turned into a predominantly Hispanic church. So San Antonio Baptist Association in San Antonio, Texas, adopted it, and they made it a predominantly Spanish-speaking church. And so over time, within the last 10 years, the church has actually changed. Like everything, the church has changed. So now we have a combination of both English and Spanish-speaking congregants who attend the church. However, everything that we provide is all in Spanish. So we're going to talk about a little bit about the needs assessment there for Grace to You 2 Baptist Church. So the current leadership context that we have right now is volunteer. Everybody who has a leadership position is on a volunteer basis. The only one who has a paid salary is our pastor. He is the one who has a paid salary. Everybody else is on a volunteer basis, and the way that functions is that every year there's a list of ministries that go out, and that on that list, if you're willing to volunteer for that, you sign up for it, and then you actually lead that group of individuals for the ministry. And the ministry actually has four different ministries that we really function in there. We have a adult ministry, we have a children's ministry, we have a youth ministry, and we have a discipleship ministry. We also have the Sunday school, but that functions a little bit differently. So that is basically the current leadership context that we have. And always keeping in mind that the pastor is the only one who has a paid salary, and everybody else is doing everything on a volunteer basis. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the leadership development needs that we have here at Grace to You 2 Baptist Church. So one of the main needs that we saw on this plan was that there's a lack of documented leadership development plan. There is no leadership development plan. Like mentioned earlier, everybody comes into the position and they pray, of course, under prayer and under guidance of the pastor, but that's basically the extent of the development plan that we actually have in place. And we thank God for that, because without those volunteers we would not have a ministry at all. However, we do see that over time we definitely need, the changes have indicated that we need a solid leadership development plan. And so there's an absence of a leadership pipeline. There is no pipeline. I mean, we only have the teachers, the director, and the pastor. That's the leadership pipeline that we have. So there is not a leadership pipeline, and there's definitely a need for a leadership pipeline here. The discipleship consists of only one person, one individual, and that person disciples one person at a time. So definitely looking at a strong and effective discipleship and leadership training in that ministry as well. And as mentioned earlier, we are more now where it's more generational. It's changed over time. The ministry of Grace to You Baptist Church has changed over time. It started off Anglo. The San Antonio Baptist Association adopted it, so it became Hispanic, and it became all Spanish. But those Spanish-speaking congregants' children are growing, and they're speaking all English, and so they're actually leaving to other churches where they can understand and receive growth, the biblical spiritual growth that they need in the language that they understand. So definitely an ESL training, and bilingual being both English and Spanish. So we're going to see that in our leadership plan that we have here right now. And so I'm going to go ahead and introduce a little bit. I'm going to just briefly mention what the plan actually entails over the 5 years. So if you notice here, I have, so for the first year, it's going to be establishing a strong baseline of assessment and clear expectations. So those expectations need to be, everyone's going to know exactly what's going to be going on in their ministry. Many times when people do not know what's going on, they become frustrated, they become burnt out, and we end up without any leaders in those ministries. So making sure that we have a strong baseline for that and the expectations are clear. We also want to make sure that on year 2, we want to go ahead and launch good training at workshops and conferences that we can attend for the leadership training. We want to really use the resources that we have available in San Antonio, and one of those is San Antonio Baptist Association. On a monthly basis, they provide trainings for both English and Spanish-speaking individuals. So they would have the same training for leaderships in English as they do in Spanish. So at Grace to You Baptist Church, that has been a need. It has been an ever-growing need that we've noticed within the last 3 to 4 years, and it's actually hindering the growth of the church and the development of Grace to You Leadership Church. So with that, we also want to, on year 3, we want to go ahead and implement a strong mentorship and coaching program. As mentioned earlier, the individuals who actually are leading these ministries have prayed about it. The Lord has led them to that, but that's about the extent of the training that they've received. So having a strong mentorship, having that one individual or a number of individuals who can support you whenever you have questions, whenever you have any issues, or you need some support, having those individuals that you can actually go to. One of the examples that I'd like to give about implementing a good mentorship program would be biblical rounds. Biblical rounds would be us going to some neighboring churches, some sister churches that we might have close by that are being effective and successful in their plans, in their ministries that they have. And it's very much like a doctor's round. The doctors go, they go and they visit their patient, and then they come out and they discuss it. They briefly discuss it before they go to the next patient. That would be the same approach that we would use in our implementing a good mentorship and training program. So we would go to sister churches, and we would all observe, the leaders would observe the youth group, then they would go to the children's group, and then they'd go to the adults group. But before they go to the different ones, they'll debrief outside. They'll do a little round, and they'll debrief outside of what they actually saw and what they actually really thought would be beneficial to bring back to Grace to You 2 Baptist Church. And then, of course, we cannot have a leadership plan without having an evaluation. So being able to go back and assess what's going on in the ministries, and come back and just adjust whatever we need to adjust in the plan. And then for year 5, it would be to go ahead and start developing another plan, looking at our glows, what did we do really well within this plan, and looking at our grows, what do we need to make sure that we change and we make better for future initiatives, and preparing for the next future leaders that we have at Grace to You 2 Baptist Church. So along with that, I mentioned that there's also a need for a leadership pipeline, because there is no leadership pipeline. We do not have any leadership pipeline. So in this plan that we have here, you're going to see a leadership ministry structure and systems, and it consists of roles and responsibilities, specific character traits, and addressed to each specific ministry. And one thing that you're going to notice here is that it actually stresses the importance of making sure that we have both English and Spanish speaking leaders who can develop future leaders in Grace to You 2 Baptist Church. So the idea would be for us to keep it in English, however, also have a Spanish class for the ones who do not understand the English language, and being able to provide services for them as well in the language that they're actually fluent in, that they actually understand the English or the Spanish. So being able to provide services for them as well in their native language. I know we're in the United States, however, we are now a multicultural society, and being able to provide that for them as well is going to be one of our goals. Also, the vision is actually just like it says in Matthew 22:37, love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your mind and all your soul. And that's our vision, that everything that we do it with our whole heart and with our whole mind and our whole soul directed to God, everything that we do there. And then, of course, we have a strong leadership evaluation tool. With this evaluation tool, it's going to help us identify certain needs, and it's going to help us prepare the future leaders for their next steps in their ministries that they're going to be taking. So in concluding, I'd like to say that that our ultimate goal is to foster a leadership culture that mirrors, it gives examples of our church's diversity, and it equips the individuals to serve effectively in a bilingual setting. So we want to go ahead and empower, we want to equip our leaders, we want to educate them, but we also want to empower them to be able to help others, to bring others to the Lord's feet as well. And in concluding, I'd just like to thank you for joining us today. I hope that this presentation has been useful, and I know that as we join together, let's build a stronger and more effective leadership team for Grace to You 2 Baptist Church. Thank you for attending and listening to this presentation.